Okay, it's 12 July. It's Sunday. I'm Charlie Garrett, and this is the CG Prophecy Report. Faster than a Big Mac. Yeah, that and a lot of other things to go over on today's report. Okay, just so you know, on the Prophecy Report, we had a visitor this morning. He's an evangelist. He goes around the world. He hands out tracts, tens of thousands of tracts a month. He's been at almost every soccer game with the World Cup or whatever it's called, World Series, whatever it's called. He's gone to almost every one of them with his crew. He was by today. He's an old ex-cartel member, and he met the Lord, and here he is 40 years later still handing out tracts and telling people about Jesus. If you get a chance, watch that opening comments video, and I think you'll appreciate it very much. He does a great job. He's tireless in his efforts for the Lord. So please take time to watch that. And we got some news from Israel. From the Times of Israel. Israel ranks 18th in the global wealth list as 8,800 Israelis become new millionaires. So 18th in the whole world. Imagine that, a little country in the middle of nowhere. When I say a middle of nowhere, I mean in the middle of all of these countries that aren't doing these things, or if they are doing them, they're doing it based on what's in the ground, which they can take out, and they're not really innovative like Israel. But with average personal wealth in dollar terms of $312,108 per adult at the end of 2025, Israel moved down one spot from the previous year's ranking and was situated before South Korea and after Ireland. Now, think of that. South Korea is a booming country, and they are before them. Globally, personal wealth expanded at its fastest pace since 2017, marking the third consecutive year of growth, creating nearly 1 million new millionaires, or more than 2,600 millionaires per day. Switzerland came in at the top of the table in terms of average personal wealth, followed by the U.S., Luxembourg, among 56 countries that represent over 92% of the world's wealth. 56 countries, I think there's 104 countries, is that right? I may be wrong, but 50% have 92% of all of the wealth of the world, the Swiss bank said. Israel was home to about 195,000 millionaires at the end of 2025, an increase of 4.7% over 2024, as just over 8,800 people became new minted dollar millionaires. However, Israelis in this wealth bracket represent only 3.2% of the country's adult population. So there is a lot of, I won't say poverty, but less fortunate people in Israel. And that's because they got a huge migrant population. It's difficult for people in the first generation to assimilate and so forth. More than 82% of the country's gross personal wealth is invested in financial assets, the second highest proportion in the list of 56 countries after Sweden. While average wealth per adult in Israel has been rising in recent years, median wealth, which portrays a more accurate picture of the wealth levels prevalent in the middle of the scale, declined, highlighting a growing divide between the wealthiest and the broader population, the UBS report found. So, kind of interesting. Times of Israel. Israel sold advanced F-15 systems to Qatar and Saudi Arabia. So they get our F-15s, they take out all of our avionics, and they vastly improve them and put it in their airplanes, and they took that information and sold it to people that you would assume are their enemies. But that tells you that it's not actually the case. Out of the Qatari royal family's 11 planes, 3 have Elbit's Sea Music air defense system, which was installed between 2020 and 2022, while the planes were undergoing maintenance. Using a sophisticated radar system, Sea Music tracks incoming man pads, which are shoulder-fired surface-to-air missiles, and deflects them using a very powerful laser beam. The system can be installed in various parts of the plane and is easy to operate with no special training needed. It also operates on the aircraft of Israel's Prime Minister, Wings of Zion, as well as the French presidential plane, among others. The contract for the 2017 U.S.-Qatar deal to sell F-15QA Ababil warplanes to Qatar shows that Israeli firms won tenders for $150 to $250 million subcontracts to supply advanced parts and systems for the jets, including the 160J HMCS helmets worth some $200,000 each. You think about a jet fighter pilot's helmet, you wouldn't expect it to be that expensive, but they're very, very expensive. They include AN/AVS 9 night vision glasses. Saudi Arabia and Qatar both have no diplomatic relations or open defense ties with Israel. However, in the years and months leading up to October 7th, Hamas-led massacre, it was widely reported that Riyadh was considering normalization with Israel along the lines of the U.S.-brokered Abraham Accords with other states. And as we saw, I think it was 1 week or 2 weeks ago, that was stopped when Hamas attacked specifically for the purpose of stopping Saudi-Israel relationships. That was their main impetus for doing that. Times of Israel, U.S. signed land agreement for permanent American embassy complex in Jerusalem. They have been in Jerusalem. It was a temporary complex. It is now approved. The plan, it was approved in 2019, and in 2021, Jerusalem municipal authorities approved the proposal to construct the building on the so-called Allenby compound bordered by Hebron Road in southern Jerusalem, currently empty and abandoned. The plot has a rich history. During the British Mandate period, it housed the so-called Allenby Barracks, named after the UK's General Edmund Allenby, who operated an army base there. Later, Israel maintained a border police station there, and now it's going to be plowed out. It's going to have a U.S. embassy on it, a permanent one. All Israeli politicians praise Slovenia for reversing recognition of Palestine, announcing an embassy move to Jerusalem. So they've taken away their recognition of Palestine. Good job, Slovenia. From all Israel records drop in abortion applications as 99.8% of requests are approved. 99.8%. They're killing every person that wants to kill their baby, stamp it and send it on. So Israel has its problems along with its positives. If you don't believe that, go to Tel Aviv during the Pride Parade. Got some news from Christianity here, from Zero Hedge. San Francisco Archdiocese agrees to $395 million abuse settlement. So this is like the 20th time I've reported on one of these in the past 5 years. They are filled with perverts in the Catholic Church, absolutely filled with them. And if you take all of the money that has been put aside by these different dioceses, we're talking about literally probably $3 to $4 billion. It's no small amount of money. If you're a Catholic right now and you are watching this and you are giving your money to the Catholic Church, you are making a giant error in what you're doing with your money, a giant error. There are many, many churches that people give money to that I would not give a nickel to, even if it was to keep them open. I'd gladly withhold it for that purpose. They need to go. Most mainstream denominations now are just apostate. The Methodist denomination, the Episcopal denomination, giving your money to these denominations that have totally departed from Christ is like throwing your money away. It's worse than that because you're funding apostasy. Catholic Church is definitely that way. Billions of dollars just thrown away. Lives ruined, children being destroyed by the Catholic Church. It comes 3 years after the Archdiocese filed for bankruptcy, and will cover approximately 530 survivors of child sexual abuse. 530. Now imagine how many didn't come forward because they're embarrassed at what has happened to them. Or they were converted in their thinking and say this is a normal way of life, and they become that way of life, and so they don't bother suing because it's normal. It's not normal. It is perverse. The proposed 14-point settlement plan calls for appointing an independent child protection consultant with full access to archdiocesan records, publishing findings, and a much more complete list of credibly accused offenders, creating a survivor-sensitive public archive, and strengthening protections for whistleblowers and reporters. It also calls for banning mandatory non-disclosure agreements in abuse settlements and prohibiting private digital communications between adults and children. Necessary steps, but the most necessary step would be to just close the Roman Catholic denomination. Close it down. That'd be the best thing that would happen to Christianity in eons. From The Guardian, Texas makes Bible passages. I say that, and I'm probably making some Catholic that watches these angry, but it's true. If you've seen what the Pope has been doing lately and the things that he has been approving, it's not just unchristian, it is anti-biblical. The Bible is a reflection of God's character. He gave it to us because it reflects what he is doing in the world. If what the Catholic Church is doing is contrary to Scripture, then it is anti-biblical, and therefore it is anti-God, and it is anti-Christ. So I don't want to say I couldn't care, but I just don't really care that people are informed properly. And if that offends somebody, I can't have a care about that. They need to know what's going on in the Roman Catholic Church. Guardian, Texas makes Bible passages required reading for millions of public school students. Good. Bible stories will become mandatory reading for millions of students in addition to a more standard collection of books. I can't think of a more standard book than the Bible. Renewing debate over growing efforts in the U.S. to increase the role of religion in classrooms. A 2023 law required state education officials to designate at least one literary work for every grade level, with the state board expanding on that mandate by recommending multiple texts for each grade. While teachers may still assign books outside the list, they must do so in addition to the required selections. The reading list states that excerpts from the book of Jonah, real harmful there, right? And the book of Psalms, real harmful there, right? I mean, we're talking about beautiful books that convey the heart of God to the people of the world, will be required reading beginning in the 7th grade. Additional excerpts from several parts of the Bible, such as the book of Lamentations and the book of Genesis, will become a part of the curriculum for high school students. Opponents, of course, say it breaches the constitutional separation of church and state, which the Bible was read in America all the way up until the early 1960s. In every school in America, it didn't breach anything. Okay, this became an agenda against biblical Christianity at that time, and it's only gotten worse. And now we are correcting the deficiency that came about at that time. It lacks diversity and gives preference to Christianity over other faiths. Supporters argue that Judeo-Christian traditions played a central role in the country's founding, which it does and no other religion does, and therefore no problem. And it should be represented in public school teachings. The curriculum has drawn criticism, not only for its inclusion of religious texts, but also for its heavy emphasis on older works, many written by white male authors in a state where more than half of the public school students are Hispanic or black. Okay, so there you go with that. From Fox, Wisconsin student alleges school barred her from using Bible verse at graduation. A lady named Sarianne Barona. It's very weird spelling of Sarianne, but that's probably how it's pronounced. Sarianne Barona submitted Proverbs 3:6 as her personal message, but it was allegedly told it violated school policy. Okay, we got some news from the Mideast and Africa today. From DNYUZ, Kazakhstan's leader deepens U.S. ties, says Trump was sent by heaven. Kazakhstan. In pursuit of greater independence and security, Mr. Tokayev's landlocked nation of 21 million people bordered by Russia and China has tried to counterbalance the neighboring superpowers by inviting investment from countries farther afield. They include the U.S., European nations like the Netherlands and Switzerland, South Korea, Turkey, and several in the Middle East. A desire to emulate the Gulf states is palpable at the headquarters of Kazakhstan's Sovereign Wealth Fund. Before I go on, I didn't know much about Kazakhstan, so I read up on it while I was looking at this article, and I looked at a lot of photos of it. If you want to see a really beautiful country, it's like going out to Montana maybe or Wyoming. It's beautiful. Check it out. Kazakhstan's tightly controlled political system, its multinational quest for investment, and its natural resource-filled development offers parallels to nations like the UAE and Qatar. It's just a lot prettier. We are driven by a pragmatic approach. If we see merit in working with the U.S., the EU, a Chinese, Russian, Korean, German, Emirati, or whatever company, we assess it on a relative performance basis, and we choose what is best for us. Lately, there has been a particular focus on the U.S., Kazakhstan is a junior partner to Russia in a NATO-like military alliance and a EU-like trade bloc, but that hasn't stopped its leaders from aggressively courting Washington under President Trump, prompting a slew of business deals, a series of high-level meetings, and a frenzy of engagement with American companies. In response to Russia's war in Ukraine, Central Asian governments have drawn closer as a bloc, while welcoming Mr. Trump's transactional approach to foreign policy. They are seeking opportunities to reduce their reliance on Moscow, even as they tread lightly so as not to cross the Kremlin or antagonize China. For the business relationship, it has never been better, said Jeff Ehrlich, the president of the American Chamber of Commerce in Kazakhstan, who has worked in and around the region since the late 1990s. In my experience, that is clear. In Washington, Mr. Trump has dispensed with Americans' traditional talk of human rights and democracy in connection with foreign policy. He said, we're not going to do that nonsense anymore, and now countries actually want to deal with us on a business level, something they couldn't do in the past. He has instead embraced a mercantilist approach, judging countries like Kazakhstan by what deals they offer. A top priority has been securing access to Kazakhstan's large supply of critical minerals and ensuring that they can be exported via the Middle Corridor, a route that crosses the Caspian Sea and the Caucasus to avoid Russia. There would be no Middle Corridor if Trump was not president. He got that secured for us, and he is one of the most intelligent people I've ever imagined could be president of the United States. He comes up with ideas that nobody has ever thought of, and he implements them immediately. It doesn't take 15 years he just does it. He's astonishing in his ability to lead. Mr. Tokayev's authoritarian ways, he recently changed Kazakhstan's constitution to strengthen his power, once hindered his country's relationship with the U.S. But under the second Trump admin, which dismantled U.S. aid programs working on human rights issues in Kazakhstan, such concerns are no longer an irritant for Washington. Good. Zero Hedge. Muslim theme park experience sparks fierce backlash in two-tier UK. A theme park in Britain has received intense backlash for marketing exclusive access, halal vendors, and Islamic stalls, effectively sidelining non-Muslims. Zero Hedge. Sadiq Khan said there were no grooming gangs in London. Police are investigating 4,000 cases. Zero Hedge. Yeah, well, it's part of their religion. You lie to advance your religion. And it's just what they do in Islam. So you never know if you're dealing on an honest level with them or not. You will never know, because that is acceptable in their religion, to lie. Zero Hedge. 83% of French in favor of deportation of criminals and long-term unemployed foreigners. 83%. Unless Le Pen becomes the new president there, I want to see how many people think even one person will be deported. Anybody? Not a single hand up. Okay. Gateway Pundit. Criminal gangs in Europe are surging with an army of 400,000 gangsters working for the syndicates, says Europol. From the Times of Israel. U.S. considering moving Gulf bases hit by Iran westward, including to Israel. Mongolia. From Open. Mongolia adopts. It's a little late. When the UN comes out and says we're not going to do this anymore, it's a little late, but here they go. Mongolia adopts climate change law. The law ensures coordination of actions for mitigating climate impacts and adapting them, as well as aiming to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and promote green development. Aspects include provisions on climate financing, carbon markets, greenhouse gas emissions inventories, and reporting mechanisms. The law is intended to assist Mongolia in fulfilling its international climate commitments. Mongolia is considered one of the countries most vulnerable to the impacts of climate change. I love when they say things like that. They say, like North Carolina is susceptible to global warming and flooding. We got all over the world, we got oceans, but North Carolina is singled out. They do stuff like that, right? It's most vulnerable. Currently, about 77% of the country's territory is suffering from desertification and land degradation. I've reported on that at least 10 times in the past 10 years. Why are they having desertification? Nobody remembers. It's because they have cashmere goats that are very abusive on the land environment. They keep breeding them because they get a lot of money for cashmere, whatever, hair, whatever you call it, and they make sweaters and all that kind of stuff. They are ruining their landscape. But it's climate change. It's not. Everybody knows that it's cashmere goats. Everybody knows that, and yet they blame it on climate change. Daniel 12 technology, zero hedge. U.S. Navy tests 3D printed composite patches to speed up FA-18 fighter jet repairs. Instead of having something made over in this country or that country or wherever, they just make it right on site. When an FA-18 fighter jet gets damaged at a remote base, fixing its advanced composite parts typically takes weeks. The Navy had to wait for specialized technicians to arrive or ship massive parts across the globe to repair depots in the U.S., keeping combat jets grounded. The new method could solve this challenge. The engineers have designed a high-performance 3D printed composite patches that can be manufactured and applied directly onto grounded aircraft. Rather than waiting weeks for a shipping container, sailors at forward bases can soon hit print. Our goal is to put capability directly into the hands of the fleet. By simplifying a complex repair so it can be done forward, our engineers would get aircraft back in the flight faster. It's a smart solution that makes our squadrons more self-sufficient and directly improves operational readiness. The strategy's real advantage is that it leverages infrastructure the Navy already owns. As per the official release, the service has deployed industrial 3D printers to 22 maintenance sites around the world. I reported on that 1 year and a half ago. The process strips away geographic vulnerability. Reportedly, this deployment of the new patch method aligns with a major structural shift for the USMC, which plans to deactivate all remaining Hornet squadrons by 2030. The service is phasing out the maintenance specialties associated with the aging fighter jet as it transitions entirely to a tactical fleet of fifth-generation F-35 Lightning II aircraft. Nevertheless, if the method gets widely adopted, the patch method will fundamentally alter how naval aviation views sustainment. The Navy will be able to respond to the demands of modern combat with much greater speed and agility. The reason why they have put this on the back burner instead of doing the other things is to make sure that it worked with all of these other components that can fail. A fighter jet that has a component that will fail will make the entire unit fail. Okay, it's going to come down. And so they are putting it through very strict testing right now. They're putting like this piece on the plane, trying it out, this piece on the plane, trying it out, to make sure that it can take the stresses of this high altitude, fast speeds, etc. And it seems to be working out so far. Okay, it's a dangerous world, including the inevitable plagues noted in the book of Revelation. Unsurprisingly, ABC7, mutating mice becoming growing problem in New York City, researchers say. Well, when you've got a mayor that's a mouse, you're going to have that problem. From the Business Brief, what's happening is they've been feeding them all these chemicals over the years, and they've developed a tolerance to it, and they can't kill them anymore. So they're multiplying, which goes along with the liberal agenda. So you've got the two going hand in hand. It's great. Lots of rats for lots of rats. Business Brief. Rising popularity of anti-vaccine dating apps sparks outrage among the public. I don't want to date a vaccinated person, and people are upset about that. Let them do what they want. If you don't want to date a vaccinated person, then you should have an app for it. But for some reason, people are upset about that. Breitbart, DR Congo Ebola cases past 1,200 with 360 deaths. From the Epoch Times, CIA investigated officers for espionage over not taking the COVID-19 vaccine. They didn't take the vaccine. They said, I don't want it, and they were investigated for espionage. This was a total agenda against any normalcy in the United States of America. From Fox, milestone, scientists claim to build synthetic cell, raising concerns in step toward artificial life. This was last week, but I thought I'd throw it in case you hadn't heard it. The University of Minnesota's lab-built system was assembled entirely from non-living components. So they've made a cell from non-living components. Morality, Breitbart, mother of trans athlete who I think should be in an insane asylum, by the way, but that's just my opinion. Mother of trans athlete claims her child was made invisible after being forced to share award stage with females. That lady should be in an asylum. The mother of transgender California track athlete A.B. Hernandez seems to believe that the winner's podium at a female track event is no place for females. And this is a female speaking. In a speech at the San Francisco Pride Summit on Thursday, Nereyda Hernandez took strong exception to the recent California Interscholastic Federation decision to give first place honors to the female athletes who finished behind her son. Well, the reason why is her son isn't a female. Hernandez says the new rule has rendered her son invisible, which it should be. Of course I'm going to be upset. AB put all the work, all the hours after school, and she's calling her son a she, got put aside. It was heartbreaking. I knew it would hurt her because she's physically there, but she's kind of invisible. Zero Hedge, World Cup pundit branded racist for calling African team's performance wild. He said, man, that was a wild performance, and they say he's a racist. Zero Hedge, Virginia school district sued over, you know what, I don't care what the left says. If they want to say something about me, they can say it all day long. If they're lunatics, they're lunatics. If I want to say the word wild about a black person, I'll say it. We are not to be forced into this type of agenda. Say what you want. Zero Hedge, Virginia school district sued over concealing student gender transitions from parents. PBS, tens of thousands march in the first Budapest Pride since Viktor Orban was voted out. Budapest, Hungary is just going to go just like this now. It's going to go right down the tubes. Zero Hedge, UK parents face 5-year jail terms for questioning their child's gender transition. The post-millennial Toronto Pride festivals feature queers for Palestine protesters, rainbow Antifa flag, signs telling cops to kill themselves. Gateway pundit, Seattle Pride Parade participants strip naked and chase children around a water fountain. No. Yes. They got it all on video. Nobody did a thing. Breitbart. Democrat Minneapolis mayor lifts ban on gay sex bathhouses. That's their priority in Minneapolis. Zero Hedge, outgoing UK Prime Minister, is proud to have the gayest parliament of all time anywhere in the world. That's what he's proud of, is his years of fouling up their country. That's what he's proud of. That's why he's being ousted. It's because he's a lunatic. Life News, France National Assembly passes bill to legalize euthanasia. Other news, Sunday Guardian. War manpower crisis. Russia's newly deployed soldiers survive as little as 20 to 35 minutes on the front line as casualties near 1.4 million people. Imagine that. You're sent out to the front and you last 30 minutes. The contract is usually a few pages long. The signing bonus can reach $80,000, a fortune in the Russian regions where most recruits are drawn from. The training lasts a few days, and then, according to the Russian military bloggers, the new soldier reaches the front line of eastern Ukraine and has, on average, 20 minutes to live. The figure, precise and harrowing, has taken on a life of its own, spreading through Russian military communities and filtering upward in academic analysis, precisely because it rings true to so many families who have already lost someone. The result is men arriving at one of the most drone-saturated battlefields in history, with barely enough time to orient themselves before the machines find them. Drones now account for more than 80% of Russian losses. The battlefield has been so transformed by cheap first-person view drones that traditional infantry movement, the kind that has defined land warfare for a century, has become nearly suicidal. What they mean is they're flying it, they can see everything they're flying to, and they just fly it right into a person and blow them up. And they're very cheap, they can do it, make them all day long, and then just fly them in and kill people. They're that inexpensive. Unable to rely on heavy artillery, now easily picked off by drones, Russia's military has turned to infiltration tactics, using small groups of soldiers on foot or motorcycles to probe weaknesses in Ukraine's lines. Those men moving exposed through open terrain are precisely the kind of targets the drones were built to find. The numbers behind the 20-minute figure are staggering in aggregate. Russia's monthly casualties now exceed 30,000 people a month, with the Russian army suffering 8 casualties for every single casualty sustained by the Ukraine. 8-1. Ukrainian Armed Forces CIC Sursky stated that since the beginning of 2026, total Russian military casualties had exceeded 141,500 troops, with over 83,000 classified as irreversible losses. According to Sursky, the Russian army loses at least 1,000 service members daily to deaths or injuries. Zelensky noted that Russian casualties for April alone exceeded 35,000 killed and severely wounded. The British intelligence agency GCHQ said last month that Russian war deaths have now likely reached nearly 500,000. So there's either from 500,000 to 1.4 million. They don't know the exact number. Estimates suggest that there are now more Russians killed in the war than there are wounded, a first in modern warfare. It is against this backdrop that Russia's recruitment machine is beginning to seize. Recruitment of new contract soldiers into the Russian army has dropped by 30% in 2026. The Kremlin has responded by dramatically escalating the financial inducements on offer. Signing bonuses can reach $80,000, a debt write-offs of up to $140,000. Enormous sums in a country where the average salary is about $1,000 per month, and significantly lower in many remote regions. Despite this, around 800 to 1,000 volunteers join the Army every day. But the gap between the men being recruited and the men being consumed by the front is widening. At the end of 2025, Russian authorities reported more than 420,000 signed contracts, even as the state media acknowledged the sharp decline in new signups this year. From Al Jazeera, Russia's advance collapses in Ukraine, 40,000 troops killed in June. They went from 30 to 40,000 in a single month. NASA Neva. USA plans to produce missiles according to the McDonald's model, faster than a Big Mac. The Pentagon aims to establish fast, cheap, and mass production missiles, comparing the new concept with the operating principles of the McDonald's chain, a standardization, speed, and scalability effort. One example is the American company Co-Aspire, which uses 3D printing to manufacture missile parts. You know, in the past, we've always depended on very precisely made, very expensive bombs. And they work and they're effective, but they have found that sending out lots of bombs that may not be as effective is just as good, and they cost much, much, much less. And you can make them very quickly. According to the company's head, Doug DeAndrea, this significantly accelerates production. The company assembled its first missile in 4 months and plans to complete the second in 5. That's a reduction. The first missile was made in 4 months. Now they're going to make it in 5 months. I think they're going in the wrong direction. Anyway, the USA produces a relatively small number of expensive missiles. For example, approximately 600 Tomahawk missiles are produced annually, each costing about $2.6 million. PRSM and JSSM missiles are also estimated at approximately $1.6 to $1.9 million per unit. Another company, Castellion, has already received a Pentagon contract to produce more than 12,000 hypersonic missiles over 5 years. In the future, it plans to produce up to 6,000 missiles annually at a price of about $400,000, so a third of the cost, and a lot more of them. Using widely available components from the automotive industry, the American military industry is long focused on expensive and complex weapon systems, but modern warfare requires mass production. In the next 5 years, the USAF plans to spend about $12 billion on the procurement of 28,000. In addition, there is a program to acquire 10,000 ground-based missiles over 3 years. This is all because of Trump, all of it. He went in there and he said, I want us to have capability always available. All of it because of him. They never did this under these Democrat presidents, ever. They did not care about that. Along with the development of missile production, the USA is also expanding the production of drones. The Pentagon admits that new, cheaper missiles may be inferior to expensive counterparts in accuracy and reliability, but believes that the ability to quickly replenish stocks is becoming an increasingly important factor in modern conflicts. From Zero Hedge, the average Asian American household makes more than double that of blacks. This is, you know what, I'm going to tell you something. The Republican Party ended slavery in this country. The Democrat Party brought it back in, and they've been in this position ever since. I see it every week of my life when I'm down in the projects, every single week. I didn't go yesterday, I didn't go yesterday because I had a problem that I had to have resolved. 5 people showed up, actually 6, and one of them couldn't do his missions work, so he went home. But they had 5 people down there, and they got everything covered. But this is what happens when you allow the left to take control of a policy. They will always make it worse. Median household incomes differ significantly across racial and ethnic groups in the United States, with one group sitting well above the rest. Anybody? Asians. In 2024, Asian households reported a median income of $121,700. Median. Nearly $30,000 higher than white alone, non-Hispanic households, and more than double the median income of black households. These differences reflect a mix of factors including education, geography, occupation, household composition, immigration patterns, and historical inequalities. White alone, non-Hispanic households ranked second with median income of $92,530. Hispanic households followed at $70,950. American Indian and Alaska Native households had a median income of $59,050, while black households had the lowest among the listed groups at $56,020. The long-term trend also shows that these gaps have persisted across multiple economic cycles. While incomes have generally risen since 2002 in inflation-adjusted terms, the distance between the highest and the lowest income groups remains substantial. The Republican Party ended slavery. The Democrats reintroduced it. That is what has happened in this country. And these people, I'm talking about the people that are in the projects that have no way of getting out. They have taken an entire generation of people and they have put them into, it's voluntary slavery, but it's involuntary in the sense that the government says, if you excel while you're here, you have to leave, but you don't have enough to start on the outside. And so they are in a box that they cannot get out of. And our job on Saturdays is to go down and to pray with these people to try to help them to get out. We've had very little success. It's 21 years we've been doing this every Saturday without missing one Saturday in 21 years. Cold, heat, storms, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's a holiday. We have never missed a Saturday in 21 years as a group. And that is our job. And we've had some success. We have had some people get out of the projects. But more people, if you are in a city or in an area that has a city close to you, and you want something to do on Saturday that is productive, you should start a Adopt a Block walk and go down there and talk to people. They need help. You know, I go in with one girl in particular. She takes the darkest of all of our routes. We've got prostitutes, we've got pimps, we've got drug addicts in one area in particular. Those people need Jesus. Those people need hope. And if you're not going down there and helping those people, they will be in bondage for the rest of their life. Voluntary bondage, but it's involuntary in a sense. So please, if you have the ability to spend your Saturday doing something, do that. Mail online. Toyota takes next step toward launching flying cars that will skip rush hour traffic in style. Yes. Toyota's doubling down. They're doubling down on its vision of flying taxis after announcing a major new manufacturing partnership with California-based Joby Aviation, somebody we reported on several years ago, with a goal of mass-producing electric aircraft capable of whisking, I like that word, whisking passengers over congested cities at speeds of almost 200 miles an hour. Okay, now imagine this. They are in a city. It takes you an hour and a half to get to the airport, and it's you got to go this way. They are flying straight at 200 miles an hour. You can be there in minutes. You're whisked there. The Japanese auto giant is taking a controlling 51% stake in the new venture called Joby Toyota Aero Manufacturing Preparation Company. Rather than looking like a conventional airplane, Joby's futuristic craft is a cross between a helicopter and a sleek private jet. The all-electric vehicle uses 6, not 2, 6 tilting propellers to take off and land vertically. It's a very cool-looking thing. Before transitioning, I hate that word since the past few years, but before transitioning into forward flight like an airplane, it can carry a pilot and 4 passengers. And it's designed to reach speeds of nearly 200 miles an hour while producing far less noise than a traditional helicopter. The companies have worked together since Toyota first invested nearly $400 million in Joby in 2020. I think that's when I reported on it, so it's been 6 years now. Since then, the Japanese automaker has increased its total commitment to around $900 million, make it one of Joby's biggest backers. Joby will also grant the venture exclusive rights to manufacture its flagship S4 aircraft, while Toyota contributes decades of manufacturing expertise developed through its automotive business. Joby is competing with rivals, including Archer Aviation, to become one of the first companies to receive full approval from the FAA to carry paying passengers in electric vehicle takeoff and landing aircraft, known as eVTOLs. Toyota's manufacturing muscle could prove crucial. Joby has ambitious plans to eventually build up to 500 aircraft a year, with production initially ramping up to around 4 aircraft per month once certification is secured. The partnership also opens the door for Toyota to eventually operate its own fleet of air taxis. That to me is very cool. I don't know if I'd ever get into one of them, maybe in a few years if they prove okay, but it's one of those things that I like being on the ground. And I don't see any reason to change that unless it's absolutely necessary. I will say this. One time, and I even put some photos of it on the prophecy report so people could see, I thought I'm going to take my wife on her birthday out on one of those helicopter tours they do here. You go right up to the airport and they got these places that have helicopter tours. And she was like, "Where are we going?" I said, "We're just going for a drive today." Lie her pants on fire. Mom was with us. Where's Mom? I just saw her walk in. Oh, she's back there somewhere. Anyway, or she left. There she's in the very back. Okay, so we went over there. I said, "We're just going to drive around." We got to the airport, pulled up, and she said, "What are we doing here?" I said, "Let's go in." And we go in, and there's all these helicopters. And she says, "I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that." I said, "It'll be okay." And so we got out there, we got to the nice red helicopter, and she's like, "I don't want to get onto there. I don't," and I'm not kidding. She would not get on. And finally I said, "Please, just get on the airplane or helicopter." Okay, so she gets on. We take off 2 feet off the ground. She turns around with the biggest smile I've ever photographed on my wife. It was, and she loved it. She was crying when we ended. "I want to go, I want to go." It is a great experience, but you do hear about helicopters in particular going down. It happens, once a month around America, a helicopter goes in and the people on it do not come out. So you have to take your chances with those things. But she really, really enjoyed that. We flew all up and down from the Sunshine Skyway all the way down over Stephen King's house on Casey Key, came back and we circled our house so we could get pictures of it and everything, and then up along the bayfront. And it was just great. It was great. So if you ever get a chance, try it out. Let's see here. MSN. Supersonic jets set for comeback as U.S. moves to lift 50-year ban. Okay, before I go on, I got to ask this. Does anybody know why they banned those supersonic jets coming into America? Noise. They say noise, but it was political. The American companies had not developed a available airplane, and they stirred up the people because the noise is over the sea. They promised that they would slow down when they came into American airspace, but they wouldn't allow it. It was totally because of the big companies. It was noise that they used as the pretext. But now that we can develop those ourselves, all of a sudden they say they're quieter. And hey, listen, a sonic boom is a sonic boom. But, okay, the Trump admin argues the Technical advances now allow planes to break the sound barrier without creating the thunderous sonic boom. We'll see if that's true, but since 1973, the FAA has prohibited civilian aircraft from exceeding Mach 1 over U.S. territory, which they promised to not do that, to prevent disruptive sonic booms. That's what bankrupted the Concourse, thank you. That's what bankrupted it. They could not, without the American clientele, they could not survive. The DOT plans to replace the ban. And the reason why I know that is because I read a long article on that one time that detailed every single bit of the process. It was like one of these conspiracy things that was actually true. The DOT plans to replace the ban on overland supersonic flight with a noise limit. This would allow an aircraft to fly faster than Mach 1 overland as long as the sound produced stays below a designated level. The announcement follows an executive order by President Trump issued in June 2025, directing the FAA to scrap its prohibition on overland supersonic flight, establish the interim noise band certification standard, and remove additional regulatory barriers that hinder the advancement of supersonic aviation technology in the United States. Okay, who said it? There is no reason for any individual to have a computer in his home. His name is Ken Olsen. He was the president, chairman, and founder of Digital Equipment Corporation in a talk given to a 1977 World Future Society meeting in Boston. Guess what? His company tanked in the 1990s because he could not see the future. Apple. I mean, the couple guys in a garage, and now they're worth trillions of dollars. I don't want to mention the other company because the guy gives me the creeps. Anyway, with Lesrick, time for a Lesrick. With respect to the rocket's red glare, and likewise the bombs bursting in air, we now say supersize to be Lord of the Flies. So our enemies, yet we will scare. Okay, good job. All right, not a lot of ironies out there the past couple weeks, so I've got only one for you. This is from the Post-Millennial. Bear business. Why is that? Oh, yes, it is funny. Okay. Oakland News Outlet. This is from the Post-Millennial. Oakland News Outlet bemoans a downturn in glass repair business amid decline of car break-ins. They're worried about glass repair when the crime is going down. That's news. Such is the world in which we live. So from Sarasota, Florida to Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia, I'm Charlie Garrett, and that is your CG Prophecy Report for the week.